John told us during the show today that there would be shocking polls.
Well, shocking for a nerd like me.
Okay.
Maybe it won't be
now all of a sudden
guys,
it's nerd shocking. Okay.
You better to be nerd shocked.
If you're a nerd, get ready. You're about to be shocked. The rest of us can calm down.
Look, in the overall polling is not shocking or particularly interesting. She's up, depending on which aggregator you look at, by 6 or 7 points or something like that. In general, over the past week or so, which is a good number. But I also know from Twitter, every poll is fake. So don't listen to polls. I've also noticed a striking lack of overlap between those attacking polls as fake and those who have ever been involved in the construction or analysis of polls. I've noticed that there's not a lot of overlap in those two things, but that's just me coming from a political science program. Now, there is actual shocking polls once you get to the state level, though. So the first is a continuation on something that we talked about last week, which is another updated Utah poll where Evan McMullin is now up 4 points over Donald Trump.
Wow.
31-27 with Hillary Clinton at 24, Gary Johnson at 5. 12% undecided. So that's 2 polls now that have McMullin. I think in the first one he was very close to leading, and now he's leading. Which there's sort of fantasy cases in which McMullin winning Utah would lead to neither Hillary nor Trump getting 270 in the Electoral College. That's much less likely than just this making it even harder for Donald Trump to reach 270. So I think
the House chooses Mike Ditka.
Woo! That'd be exciting. Maybe Kurt Schilling. But the more shocking thing, prepare to be shocked. And now I worry that you won't be shocked, but I think it's shocking. The polls are now closer in Texas than they are in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, one of the battleground states that Donald Trump probably has to win. She is now up by a larger amount there than he is in Texas, which is supposed to be a reliable Republican state. It's the equivalent on the Republican side of California. Like, all of your math is based on, well, of course we get Texas, and that's a big chunk of what you need. But now, I mean, look, he's still probably going to win. He's up by 4 points or 5 points or 6 points, depending on the poll. But that's closer than a lot of the other battlegrounds that we've been talking about. And there's others that have been moved to battleground status. Like Arizona is now considered a possible flip.
I saw the siren go out in Arizona. You are now in battleground status. Battleground status.
But in some of these polls, Texas is closer. Yes. I don't think she'll win Texas, but that is really close.
Didn't Ricky Bobby Perry eventually come around to Trump in Texas?
I think he did, actually.
Yeah. I think he was actually one of the first ones to come around.
Yeah.
He had no principles whatsoever. I think Ted Cruz, of course, with the sad face calling for Trump at the end, coming around. But a lot of Cruz guys, not a lot, some Cruz guys apparently have not come around to Trump. That's part of what's costing him. I'll tell you, number one.
Were you shocked?
It turns out I'm also a nerd. I was nerd shocked. I was. So there's a couple of, well, I knew the Texas one. I did not know the Utah one. Let me give you just a little bit more detail on Texas, and then I want to tell you why Utah is so shocking. So in Texas, there are 2 things that are costing Trump dearly. One is not at all surprising, Latinos. So there's a hugely growing population in Texas overall, and a big percentage of them are Latinos, and a giant percentage of them are not voting for Trump. So all that was to be expected, but it is making a bigger dent than you would have earlier thought in Texas. Now, the surprising part is there is more educated white voters in Texas than in that average state. That's already surprising. Okay, but Trump does not do well with educated white voters. And since there are so many educated white voters in Texas proportionate to other states, he's also losing them. So the combination of smart white people, not smart, to be fair, educated. That's just different. That's different, okay? But educated white voters combined with Latinos is making Texas close. He'll win it anyway. He'll win it anyway, but he won't win it in a landslide. And yes, other states, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Virginia. Yeah. I mean, think about that. Forget Pennsylvania. Virginia used to be is a southern state, used to be a solidly red state. Hillary Clinton will almost certainly win Virginia. Not almost certainly, that's too strong, but will likely win Virginia in a bigger margin then Donald Trump, a Republican, wins Texas.
Yeah.
Come on, that's surprising.
With the slightly depressing thing is, obviously, whenever anything like this happens, we want to be able to sort of imagine, like, well, what happens in 4 years or in 8 years? Like, does this signal a durable change in, the electoral politics? But who the hell knows if it does? I mean, Trump is such a wild, like it's basically a race to incompetence in terms of appealing to groups that you're supposed to appeal to on both sides. And so Hillary Clinton is having problems with, for instance, young people. I saw one poll today that was really good, but in general, with younger people, which Democrats are supposed to sort of wrap up pretty easily. And he's having problems with college-educated whites, including white males to some extent. And so it's difficult to say, does this have anything to say about 4 years from now? Is Texas going to be a point closer in one election, or are we going to reset to a 10-point Republican advantage? We have no idea because this election is so weird.
Yeah, so you can't.
Texas is a weird state.
Well, Texas is, and Austin is definitely keeping it weird. But no, Texas is going to become blue, but it's not going to be the next election. The demographic trends are fairly clear. There will be more Latinos, given where the parties are today. But don't get too excited about the next election. It'll take a minimum of 8 years, it appears, based on the demographic trends. I'll give you anecdotal evidence about the white educated voters, even though you don't need it, because I just told you what the polls are and what the scientific basis for it.
So let's go with anecdotes.
So I was on a plane last night with a white, educated, conservative voter.
Braggart.
Conservative Republican.
Quit bragging.
Is that a bragging thing to be on a plane next to a conservative? And he's said, oh, I'm conservative Republican, vote Republican all the time. And he's like, what a terrible election, yada, yada. I'm like, yeah, terrible election, but you're going to vote for Trump. And he's like, I didn't say that. I thought that. So I said, so what are you going to go with? He's like, no, I can't do it. Trump's an idiot. I can't vote for him.
What are the chances that you were sitting next to Bruce Bartlett twice?
So that's from another story.
Which direction is he? Is he not voting? Is he going Johnson? Is he going Clinton?
No, he's going to go Clinton.
Wow.
Yeah, and another educated white conservative emailed me today that I know, and he voted Hillary Clinton in early voting. And it pained him greatly. And he's like, God, we are going to have no change, no progress in America. But I cannot vote for that idiot Trump.
Hey, look, bipartisanship. We can finally agree on something.
Right. So, and it's not that he's a monster. It's that he's an idiot that's driving them away. So,
they like monsters.
Yeah, that's actually depressing.
No,
it's the idiot part.
No, look, to be fair, one of them also cares that he's a monster. Okay, the guy on the plane I know less about. Okay, but look, that validates to some degree why we did all those Loser O'Donnell segments, because we got through to people, not just us, but everybody, like, he's also a schmuck, and I don't want that schmuck in charge of the country, right? Okay, now, finally, back to Utah. If I told you before this race began, like 2 years before, that neither the Republican or Democratic candidate was going to win Utah, you would have said, no way. If I said they were going to, a third-party candidate was going to win any other state, you would be surprised.
Yeah.
Utah, you'd be like, how did the Republican not win Utah? Then if I told you that the person winning it is going to be named Evan McMullin, you would have been like, what?
President McMullin. I don't think there's anything wrong with McMullin.
No, nobody's ever heard of Evan McMullin. He didn't exist on planet Earth until he started running as this fifth-party candidate a couple of months ago.
He's not from that movie, The Brothers McMullin?
No, he's not. Those guys people know.
I thought that was his hook.
His hook is that some really rich, presumably conservatives, put him up to run in Utah because he's Mormon. He's a former CIA agent. Think about it. Okay.
Like Anderson Cooper.
So he knows how to get things done.
No, that's why I'm surprised he didn't bungle it. So the people of Utah, very disgruntled with Donald Trump. You want to know something also interesting to give credit to the people of Utah? It's not just because that they are deeply religious and are offended by Donald Trump's groping of women, yada, yada. Give them credit for that as well. But also, Mormons feel kinship with, to some degree, with Muslim refugees. Isn't that super interesting? Because they view themselves as a discriminated minority and also were refugees in a sense before. And so when Donald Trump says, I'm going to kick out those Muslims, we don't want those refugees, Mormons, God bless their hearts, go, no, that's not our guy. So they put up Evan McMullen, who's a Mormon. He's now finally gotten to a point where he's winning in Utah, which is unbelievable. And if he wins Utah, as John pointed out, that takes away critical electoral college points away from Donald Trump.
Yeah. It's not many by itself, but it's theoretically enough to make it effectively impossible.
And it could make a big, big difference.